Hello students, today we are going to talk about a chapter that is chemistry in everyday life. Okay, now see, ये जो chapter है generally students ignore, but every year in NEET 1 or 2 questions minimums comes from this part. लेकिन ये chapter you don't have to read throughout the year, जरूरत नहीं है. Just before the exam, 1 week or 2 weeks before the exam, you just go through the ones, make a list and memorize it and solve some MCQs. So your work will be done. Okay, and most importantly, ये video उसी काम के लिए है. So till the end, you watch this video and trust me, this whole chapter will be done. Okay, it's not a much long video, maximum it can take 30 minutes, so you don't have to worry about it. So जो मैं यहाँ पे I will discuss here, all are important और ये ध्यान से सुनना और ये video end तक देखना. Okay, and trust me, इसके बाद you don't have to revise the chapter again. Just solve some MCQs, your everything will be done. Now, chemistry in everyday life. See, the thing is that we know that what we do in everyday life, okay, what we need, like, and where the implication of chemistry is there. That chemistry is something, the subject is called center of science, because from this subject you can literally go anywhere, any discipline or any field or anything you can do. Now, mainly in our everyday life, what we do, we take foods. Okay, we clean ourselves, we wear clothes, normal activities what we do. Like, so chemistry has an aspect of very important parts in our whole daily life. Okay, and most importantly, us, that is human being, we all animals, we all are made of chemical molecules. So you cannot ignore chemistry from everywhere, right? But mainly here in this particular chapter, we will talk about 3 important places where chemistry has its huge implications. Like, number 1, we will talk about the medicines or we will talk about the drug molecules or the medicines, drug molecules. Now better remember one thing, that different kind of drugs, as we will discuss also later, different type of drugs agar hum ek jagah kare, so if you break the drug and if you see it, those are basically nothing but the chemical molecules, and how that works hum usse ke bare mein bhi baat karenge. Second is basically our most important thing is the food, that is in food what we get, what kind of chemistry is involved there. Okay, and number 3, another important part is the soap industry. Another part is the soap industry. So these are the 3 important parts of this particular chapter which we are going to talk about, and also you will read for your NEET examination. Okay, fine. Now moving along, that what is the chemicals we use in medicines. Now if you see very carefully here, so the chemicals, that is basically nothing but the drug molecules we use, right? So think in this way, that when a disease is discovered, in that case, first the people target that what kind of disease is that. Now once the disease is identified, the origin of the disease is identified, then the required molecule, that what kind of molecule is required to stop that particular amount of particular disease or to target that particular active site where the disease is spreading, what they do, we have to design a chemical molecule. Now that chemical molecule was asked to the synthetic chemist, beta babu, just give us, synthesize this molecule and we need this. So organic chemists, they synthesize the molecule, the whole world works in that way, synthesize the molecule and submit that molecule to the WHO or the World Health Organization. And after that, there will some chemical trials are there, trials on the different small species, mammal species are there, human trials are there, and after that the drugs are approved. Now while approving the drug, the important part is that this is something called the therapeutic index. Okay, बहुत बार क्वेश्चन आ चुका है नीट में, that what is a therapeutic index? That is basically the ratio of the maximum tolerated dose, that is your MTD, and the amount of the drug necessary to kill the microorganism, that is the maximum curative dose. Okay, Okay, now the point is here, this is basically is called the therapeutic index. Okay, so that is why this part is beta very important. Okay, this part is your very important. Okay, this equation, and there might be some numerical problems related to this therapeutic index. Okay, acha, now remember always this is a very important concept, that higher the therapeutic index, then what will happen? If this is part is higher, then beta maximum tolerated dose also will be higher, then curative dose will be minimum. So that is why that actually implies that the drug will be a safer to add, drug will be the safer to give. Okay, so this is a very important point, very important point. Okay, now next point. Now see the drugs. So definitely we know that not all the disease whatever we face, or what animals or this whole universe faces, not we don't treat those diseases with same drug. Like definitely we will not use painkiller for something related to some, let's say other actions, like okay, some allergy treatment, or definitely the allergy medication is not used for the painkiller. Like, so different cases have different medicines. Okay, and that actually implies here one thing is that classification of the drug molecules. So how the drug works actually, on the basis of like that, what we have here, we have the drug action here, that how the drug works in the system, and we know that it is based on the action of a particular biochemical process, like antihistamines that actually inhibits the action of the histamine, like drug related to the gastrointestinal motility or the group together, like so drug action based. Okay, suppose there is a chemical reaction going on, in that chemical reaction you put a drug molecule, now that chemical reaction will be stopped, and that is not a chemical reaction as such what we know, but it happens in our system, that's called a biochemical reaction. Similarly, the chemical structures part, if I see in this way, the drugs having the similar chemical structures that may have a similar pharmacological activity. Like if you want to treat some, let's say antibacterial properties, like sulfonamide drugs. So what we will use? We will use the sulfonamide molecules, that is NHSO3. Right, sulfonamide systems we will use. Similarly, the pharmacological effect, like analgesics, we use the painkillers, antiseptics to kill or arrest the growth of a microorganism, antipyretics, that is a reduced fever, that is a paracetamol, one of the antipyretics. Okay, acha, and the molecular targets, this is the target based. Okay, we will talk about this molecular targets in the next slide, that is target based approach. Okay, and what is happens, it based on the interaction of the biomolecules such as carbohydrates, protein, liquids, enzyme, we target that. Suppose in some cases, let's say a molecule which is working inside the cell, that is basically creating the disease. So what we will do, we will target that one with the molecule, with another drug, with drug molecule, hit that and break it. Okay, and clear the disease. And another thing, that for this molecular targets, or the molecules to be targeted, the drug molecule should have a similar kind of structure, because what we usually do, what actually usually happens is that your biological systems, what we have when we target a drug, that we have to confuse that system. We will come to that drug related discussion here. So let's talk about the drug target interaction system. Now, in the growth of the cancer cells or any unwanted things growth in our body, the most important thing is required the enzyme, the most common targeted thing is basically the enzyme. So in the drug target interaction cases, the most common, the first target, what basically we do, we basically target the enzymes. Okay, now these enzymes, we know they have an active site and they have an allostatic site also. Now let's say there is an active site here. Let's say this is my active site of the enzyme. This is the active site of the enzyme, and beta in this active site holds a biological activity. Now let's say some of the enzyme has gone rogue. Okay, because let's say its activity, or if its function, actually what it does, it produces the disease. So क्या होगा? So what we will do, we cannot directly stop the enzyme in normal way or remove that from the system like that. What we usually do here, we basically take this active site. We try to make that what molecule is coming here. What molecule is basically is coming to this active site. Okay. Now, once this is clear that what molecule is targeting this active site, this molecule we will design as my drug molecule, as a drug molecule. So when we ingest this drug molecule inside the system, then this enzyme, what will happen, instead of taking the molecule, this drug molecule will go and bind in the active site, and as a result what will happen, it will stop the action. It will stop the action or activity. It will stop the action or activity. This is known as the drug enzyme interaction direct. So this is known as the direct. This is known as the direct drug enzyme interaction. Drug enzyme interaction. Okay, or it is also known as the direct enzyme inhibition also. Enzyme inhibition also. Acha. Then other than this active site, there are some sites here also. Those sites are called allosteric site. Okay, allosteric sites. Now, what is the function of the allosteric sites? The allosteric site usually controls the activity of the active site. So what we can do now, that let's say your active site is important and we don't want to change or we don't want to disrupt or create problem for the active site. So instead of that, what we do, we usually target this allosteric site. We target this allosteric site. So this becomes our target. This becomes our target, and what we do usually here, we design a molecule that will directly go and bind to the allosteric site, and what will happen, that actually stop the activity. Stop the activity. That actually stop the activity of the enzyme. Now this is also known as the allosteric inhibition also, we can say. Allosteric drug inhibition also say. Allosteric drug inhibition. So there are places where the drugs can be targeted, easily targeted. Okay, so this is not a big deal what people think of. Now the point is here one thing, another point I need to mention, that not only enzymes also, there are a lot of receptor proteins are there, there are a lot of different biomolecules are there. That is actually your makes something like a very important targeted part. Like if we talk about that, we classify them as antagonist, antagonist and agonist. Okay, agonist. Okay, so these are the two parts, the antagonist parts and the agonist parts. Okay, now in antagonist, what will happen, that the drug molecule is to bind to the receptor. Its drug molecules binds to the receptor, and the most important thing is the receptor, and it actually inhibits the natural function, that known as the antagonist. And what actually agonist done, the agonist done, it actually mimics the natural receptors. Okay, so fine. So this was all the drug target based interaction or the drug target interaction. Now coming to the different classes of the therapeutic action of the different drugs, and the most importantly yahan se, which you have to remember, that is the different examples of the different kind of drug, and which I am going to highlight here. Okay, now see beta, one thing here is that drug, the antacids. Okay, so antacids, what it does, the function of the antacid is, suppose you have an acidic your stomach is acid is very high, okay, due to let's say some chicken roll or biryani you have already ate, uske wajah se there is acidity we say. So that's case we use different antacids, and definitely in order to reduce the acidic character we have to use the base, और यहाँ पे definitely baking soda, metal hydroxide like aluminum hydroxide, magnesium hydroxide, that is milk of magnesia we use, cimetidine, ranitidine, lansoprazole, omeprazole. Okay, there are different important your drug molecule. Okay, so this is your basically acid action. Okay, now another important thing is the next is called the antihistamines. This is known as the anti-allergic drugs. And isme the important thing is that diphenylhydramine, that is known as the Benadryl, Avil, chloramphenicol maleate, that is the Z. And these drugs are very important drugs for the name of the, because यहाँ से क्या आता है ना, which of the following is an antihistamine drug, which of the following is an antacid drug, ऐसे type का question आता है. So you have to remember. So better whatever I am discussing here, try to make a list. मैंने video देखने के साथ साथ list बना लो एक. Okay, like anti-fertility drug, that drugs are to check the pregnancy in the woman, that is mifepristone and sifinium. These are the two very important anti-fertility drugs. And neurologically active drugs, the tranquilizers and the analgesics are called the neurological active drugs, which I will discuss in the next slide. Acha. And other this that there are antimicrobial drugs are there. That is, the antimicrobial drugs are the drugs that is tends to prevent the development or the inhibit the pathogenic actions, right? Like if I talk about any, let's say there is a fungal growth or bacterial growth is happening. Okay, then what we'll do, we will use this antimicrobial drug. That is your enzymes, there are bacterial, the fungi, antifungal drugs are there, antivirus for antiviral agents are there, like antibacterial agents are there, other parasite, that is antiparasitic drugs. Okay, so there are different classification in the your antimicrobial drug, because microbe, fungus, bacteria, virus, okay, and then parasites, these are, and each of the different category of the microorganisms have a different targeted drugs. Okay, now different in the classification of this neurologically active drugs, we have tranquilizers, right? Different tranquilizers, and under these tranquilizers, that is the chemical compound that is used to treatment the stress, mild and severe mental diseases. That is the tranquilizers, and commonly known as psychotherapeutic drug. बेटा ये बहुत ही important एक line है, that is this is also known as the psychotherapeutic drugs. बहुत ही important चीज है. Okay, that is essential components of the sleeping pill. जनरली जो डिप्रेशन का मेडिसिन होता है, डिप्रेशन का मेडिसिन और लेट्स से मेंटल डिजीज, स्ट्रेस रिलीविंग, दैट इज बेसिकली योर नथिंग बट योर different sleeping pills that helps to sleep. Okay, now under that there are narcotics are there, like reduce the anxiety, that is heroin is there, marijuana is there. Okay, different sedatives are there, like Valium is there, barbiturates are there. Okay, sodium barbiturates, that is different sedatives. Antidepressant of the mood boosters, that is example ipranoside and fenzil. Okay, hypnotic drugs are there, barbiturates such as Seconal, Luminal and Veronal. Different drugs are there. The drugs which I am underlining, whenever you making a list, you should drop a list there. And non-hypnotic drug, that is Valium and serotonin. Similarly, there is another class of this neurological drug active, and that is the analgesic. Analgesics are basically, they do not work on directly on the neurological system, but actually they do indirectly, they relieve the pain, and that actually pain, when it relieves, that directly affects to the central nervous system. Okay, so under that you have non-narcotics and you have narcotic drugs, like, so different drugs, we will drug abuse we do. That is, when we take a drug, okay, we say now that drug abuse is there, say no to drugs, something like that. Especially we talk about this narcotic drugs and narcotic drugs we talk about, right? Achha, then In non-narcotic drugs is basically the aspirin, naproxen. It is very widely used as aspirin as a headache reliever. Okay, and then the chronic use leads to and the narcotic drugs are there, which actually the chronic leads to the addiction of the morphine and codeine. Now see, remember, at one question always come that what is the difference between narcotic? What is the difference between narcotic and non-narcotic drug? Non-narcotic drug. This is very important one question. Remember always, the drugs which do not cause the addiction, that is a non-narcotic drug, and the drugs which do not which causes the addiction, that is the narcotic drug. Okay, so this is a very, very important thing. Acha. Now, other than that, if I talk about the classification of the antimicrobial, I was saying here, that is the antibiotics are there, antiseptic under that there are antiseptics, disinfectant, and different antibiotics. Now, यहाँ पे the things are which is very, very important here, that is in case of antibiotics are what? That basically eagers to kill the microbes. Okay, and actually prevents the, in case of antiseptics, that actually prevents the growth of microbes. Now see, whenever, let's say you got a cut from an injury, from let's say playing in a field, or let's say working in a, let's say different dirty places, okay, जहाँ पे धूल वूल रहता है, okay, वहाँ से let's say वहाँ से तुम खेल रहे हो और वहाँ पे कट गया. So what actually happens? Those injuries actually can lead to septic. Okay, because when the body, when you get injured, some outside bacteria and the microorganism can attack that position. That is why it is important to take antiseptics, give antiseptics and tetanus injection. That is very important. Okay, acha. So what it happens, what this antiseptic, what it does, very important question. What is the function of antiseptics? What is the function of antiseptics? Okay, very important. What is the function of antiseptics? Or beta yaad rakhna, the function is that it actually prevents the growth of the microorganism either by inhibiting their reproduction or causing their death. This is a very, very important. I am just highlighting this thing, is that it prevents the growth of the microorganism and either by inhibiting their reproduction or causing them. Now remember one thing here. So what are there? Chloroxylenol, Dettol, Soframycin, Terpinol, and 0.2% solution of phenol. And this is, all of you know, this is very common. Okay, घर पे तो रहता है first aid kits, right? So वहाँ पे रहता है Soframycin, Chloroxylenol, Dettol. Okay, and what is Dettol? This is very important. Dettol. Okay, so Dettol is basically a mixture of chloroxylenol and the terpinol. This is very, very important. Now, disinfectants is that the substances which can kill or stop the growth of the microorganism. Like disinfectant, we use bleaching powder is a good disinfectant. Means there should be a chlorine or disinfecting agents, like hydrogen peroxide is a good disinfecting agents. Okay, hydrogen peroxide, then phenol, then bleaching powder. There are very good disinfecting agents. Okay, and fine. Okay, so antibiotics, the one of the very important function of antibiotics is that it can kill or inhibiting the gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria to be the broad spectrum. Like different importance are there. I really want to highlight this part, that is the ampicillin, amoxicillin, orfoxin, etc. Okay, and antibiotics which effectively mainly against the gram-positive or gram-negative bacteria are the narrow spectrum called the antibiotics, that is your penicillin. Okay, so these things are very, very, very important part for your NEET examination. और बेटा हमेशा याद रखना कि ये जो नाम्स है एम्पिसिलिन, एमोक्सिसिलिन, दे आर वेरी कॉमन नेम्स. ओके, और यहाँ से जो क्वेश्चंस आता है ना, वही कॉमन नेम, वही कॉमन होता है. नाउ you should have a habit also. Let's say that बेटा if you are preparing for the NEET, सबको ये जरूर हैबिट होना चाहिए कि सबके घर पे मेडिसिन का बॉक्स होता है. मम्मी पापा या एल्डर योर दादाजी दादी माँ, सबका एक मेडिसिन का बॉक्स होता है. So what you can do there, that you take out a medicine strip, okay, and check the chemical composition. मैं जब छोटा था मैं हमेशा ये करता था, although I didn't turn out to be a doctor. Okay, anyway, so but I am working on the same field. केमिस्ट्री. सो द पॉइंट इज दैट क्या होगा, ये अगर तुम लोग वो देखेगा ना केमिकल कॉम्पोजिशन, सो यू विल गेट एन आइडिया दैट ओके इस ड्रग के लिए ये यूज होता है, इस ड्रग के लिए ये यूज होता है. सो यू विल गेट अ वास्ट नॉलेज एंड ट्रस्ट मी दैट विल हेल्प इन योर फ्यूचर ऑल्सो. Okay, so I think this was your all part from your your drug part. Okay, so mainly तुम लोग बेटा क्या करोगे, एक लिस्ट बना लेना. That's very important. Okay, अच्छा चलो, we are on the last track. That is the next part is the food. Okay, don't worry, everything here. ये वीडियो एंड तक देखना और ये वाला जो चैप्टर यू डोंट हैव टू रिवाइज इन द सेकेंड टाइम, और सिर्फ कुछ कुछ लिस्ट बना लो और एमसीक्यू सॉल्व करो, यू आर गुड टू गो. ओके, चलो कमिंग टू दिस पार्ट. नाउ फूड प्रिजर्वेटिव. फूड इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इन आवर लाइफ. खाना तो खाना ही पड़ेगा, राइट? खाना तो खाना ही पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज वेयर वी विल गेट एनर्जी. बट प्रॉब्लम इज दैट देयर आर द केमिकल सब्सटेंसेस which actually added to the food materials to prevent the spoilage. now क्या होता है कि खाना हम लोग बाहर रख देते हैं, तो एज अ रिजल्ट क्या होता है, वहां पे खाना रख देते हैं, वहां पे बैक्टीरिया आके बैठ जाता है, क्योंकि दैट्स अ गुड सोर्स टू गेट द प्रोटीन्स एंड द मिनरल्स फॉर द ग्रोथ ऑफ द बैक्टीरिया, राइट? जैसे ब्रेड के ऊपर फंगी आ जाता है, राइट? मॉइस्चर आ जाता है, बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट होता है, राइट? नाउ द पॉइंट इज दैट वी हैव टू प्रिजर्व द फ्रूट. इस फूड इसलिए हम क्या करते हैं कि फ्रिज को फ्रिज में रख देते हैं, राइट? क्योंकि फ्रिज में एट लो टेम्परेचर बैक्टीरिया का ग्रोथ ज्यादा नहीं होता एंड फूड एक्चुअली कुछ दिन के लिए दे रहता है. बट the natural food preservers we actually use when a common food preservative to preserve the food, that is few things we use here, those are बहुत ही very important है. कुछ नाम याद रखना. the most common preservative use is the sodium benzoate. It's a very common food preservative use, that is beta sodium benzoate. और क्या certain food preservatives such as BHA, BHT are used for edible oils and also used as a antioxidants. Okay, now coming to this idea about the what is an antioxidant. देखो बेटा, these are basically antioxidant. नाम से पता चलता है कि it is basically against the oxidation, right? So which actually prevents the oxidation and subsequent spoilage of the food by retarding the action of the oxygen on the food. Now क्या होता है, food अगर हम खुला छोड़ दे तो oxygen is there present. Now क्या होगा, oxygen is a good oxidizing agent. So what it will oxidize the food और खराब कर देगा. So that's why we use antioxidants to prevent that thing. Okay, and those foods are more reactive towards oxygen. उसको हम रोकते हैं antioxidant use करके. So that is a very important use of an antioxidant, or such as BHA and BHT are very good antioxidants also. Now घर पे क्या होता है कि ब्लड शुगर का पेशेंट है, सबके घर में ब्लड शुगर का पेशेंट है. सो इन दैट केस दे इफ मैंने वो लोग जैसे चाय ले रहे हैं या कुछ कॉफी ले रहे हैं. नाउ इफ यू टेक टी और कॉफी विदाउट शुगर, इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट, राइट? ऑल्दो आई प्रेफर ब्लैक, बट द थिंग इज दैट those who have a problem in blood sugar level to increase and decrease, they can use this artificial sweetening agents. Okay, and such as you can use this aspartame, saccharin, sucralose and LTTM. So these are very good artificial sweetener, although they are very heavy price, which we use as sugar free capsules, right? जैसे छोटा सा डब्बे में आता है sugar free capsules we use. Okay, but they are little bit of very मैंने ओवर प्राइस एक्चुअली, ऑब्वियसली आर्टिफिशियल ज्यादा प्राइस तो होगा. एंड द स्वीटनेस वैल्यू कंपैरिजन टू द केन शुगर विच इज हैविंग द हाईएस्ट शुगर कंटेंट, इट इज बेसिकली फॉर एस्पार्टेम इज 100, 550, this is 600 and ultimate is 300. So basically aspartame beta is a all sweetness value compared to sugar cane is 100 times. That means it is better to use for the for the people having the blood sugar. Okay, now in the last part what we have the cleansing action of the soap and the cleansing agents. Now soap we already know that ये लोग तुम पढ़े हो already soaps कहाँ पे in the surface chemistry chapter, and where also you know the how the soap action works. So बेटा यहाँ पे मैं question दे देता हूँ, बहुत ही important है about the soap action. ओके एंड रिमेंबर ऑलवेज, ये मैं हमेशा ही बोलता हूं तुम लोगों को, वन थिंग इज दैट सोप नेवर किल्स अ जर्म, सोप नेवर kills a germ, never kills a germ. It actually separates the germ from the host body and automatically the germ died. Now coming to this point here, क्या पढ़ोगे? What is a soap? Soap is basically potassium or the sodium salts of higher fatty acids. कुछ नाम याद रखना, palmitic acid, oleic acid, linoleic acids, okay? And ये हम यूज करते हैं. Now detergent is basically used to clean cloth wash, और वो सबका एक्शन ना सेम ही होता है. सोप का जो एक्शन होता है, डिटर्जेंट का जो एक्शन होता है, सबका एक्शन सेम ही होता है. लाइक इफ आई टॉक अबाउट कैटायनिक डिटर्जेंट्स लाइक ट्राइमिथाइल स्टीराइल अमोनियम क्लोराइड, ओके, and sodium lauryl sulfate, which are the anionic detergents, and non-ionic detergents are polyethylene glycol stearate. So बेटा ये वाला जो पार्ट है, ये वाला पार्ट बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, स्पेसिफिकली जो एग्जाम्पल्स, okay. अच्छा, and what is the advantage of the synthetic detergents over the soap? Because remember one thing, when we use soap, okay, on hard water क्या होता है, कैल्शियम मैग्नीशियम का बहुत ही इश्यूज होता है. So basically they can be used in hard water. The synthetic detergent, they can be used in hard water, in acidic medium. This is very useful actually, and they are more soluble in water, जो चाहिए हमें, क्योंकि if it is not soluble in water, then how it will work? And another most important, it has a strong cleansing action than the soap. So ये वाला जो पॉइंट है ना, ये तीनों पॉइंट, ये क्वेश्चन आ सकता है तुम लोगों का एज अ स्टेटमेंट बेस्ड प्रॉब्लम, okay, fine. So this was your all about your chemistry in everyday life chapter. और अगर हम थोड़ा सा एक रिकैप देख ले यहाँ पे, so mainly क्या होता है कि medicines is important here for the chemistry in the life, and there the chemistry comes in the first place. Therapeutic index is basically the maximum tolerated dose divided by maximum curative dose. This is very important. Then what is there? Then we talked about the different classification of drugs, that is the different parts of the drug, different जहाँ पे use होता है. अच्छा, then the drug target interaction, जहाँ पे हमने बात किया एंजाइम डायरेक्ट इंटरेक्शन और एलोस्टेरिक इंटरेक्शन, एंड द एक्शन इन द डिफरेंट रिसेप्टर्स, दैट इज एंटागोनिस्ट एंड द एगोनिस्ट पार्ट. देन थेरापेटिक एक्शन ऑफ द डिफरेंट क्लासेस ऑफ द ड्रग, वहां पे डिफरेंट क्लासेस का ड्रग्स हमने देखा एंड डिफरेंट एग्जांपल्स. मेक श्योर कि बेटा तुम लोग ये वाला जो एग्जांपल्स है, ये एग्जांपल्स को एक जगह कर लो, okay, that will be very helpful. And next is the food preservatives. What are the food preservatives, what are the antioxidants, and how we can use the artificial sweeteners, what artificial sweeteners we can use, and finally the cleansing action of the soap and what detergent and the soap we can use. Okay, so this was your whole chemistry in everyday life chapter in a nutshell. And the most important thing is that ये जो important part, जो part हमने बोला यहाँ पे, all parts are very important. Okay, so make sure that once you revise this thing, once you go through this, finish this video watching, make sure that your list is done and you have practiced some MCQs and you are very good to go for your examination. Fine then. So from my side, if you have any kind of comments or any kind of questions or query, feel free to write in the comment section. Okay, so from the PrepMed team, from my side, all of you, thank you and take care.